What's going on, gardeners? It's Saturday, March 26th, and it is a gorgeous spring day here on the southeastern coast of North Carolina. Spring is officially here, and now is the perfect time of year for most of us to plant our bare root fruit trees. So today I'm going to show you two different things. Number one, I'm going to show you how to plant a bare root tree in ground, and number two, I'm going to show you how to plant a bare root tree in containers. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell to receive new video notifications, and check out our Amazon storefront and spread shop in the video description for a list of the gardening products I use and awesome custom designed apparel and other gear. Your support is greatly appreciated. One of the advantages of growing deciduous trees is that they go into deep dormancy during the winter, and when they are dormant, they are incredibly hardy and they can tolerate enormous amounts of stress, and that allows you to ship them bare root. You can have no soil mass attached to them at all and just have the roots here naked and soilless, and they will survive for quite a while. Now in this 5-gallon Lowe's bucket right here, it's full of water and it's keeping the roots hydrated on this Chojuro Asian pear tree, and I also have two small American persimmons that are bare root that I'm going to use as rootstock for grafting Asian persimmons. So this is going to go directly in the ground, and these smaller persimmons are going to go into containers for grafting. Now they have to stay hydrated until they go in ground. Now all of these trees came from Burnt Ridge Nursery, and they are located in the Pacific Northwest. So these came all the way across the country, basically shipped in a package wrapped in damp paper towels, and it went from 50 degrees north latitude all the way down here to 34 degrees north latitude. So I have to plant these as soon as possible because they are going to freak out with the huge temperature change down here, and they're going to start leafing out. So I need to get them in ground while they're still dormant. So it's important, especially if you're dealing with big jumps of latitude from north to further south, or if you're in the southern hemisphere, from south to further north, you need to get them in ground as soon as possible when you receive them. Now I have pre-excavated my hole for the Asian pear where I'm going to plant the tree, and the smaller tree that's right behind that shovel is an Asian persimmon tree. I have 8-foot spacing from center to center between the two trees, and this is very aggressive spacing. This would not fly in any kind of commercial orchard, but for backyard production I'm going to grow these espalier, and I'm going to keep them pruned very small for maximum productivity. That variety of Asian persimmon is a semi-dwarf variety, and Asian pears are naturally semi-dwarfing, so that's why I'm able to keep them spaced 8 foot apart. If you don't prune them, they will grow into each other and it'll be a mess, so you will have to maintain them annually. That's why I'm going to go with an espalier form to keep them small. Now I already have the hole pre-dug for this tree, and I have it sitting upright against this board. And the reason why I have this wooden board there is because that is going to give me the final grade of the ground. And if you look really closely, you will notice this is a grafted Asian pear. It has a rootstock that is very thick, and then off to the left side it has the scion wood, which is the Chojuro variety. The bottom of the wood is level with the ground. So right now this tree is purposefully planted probably about 3 inches too low, and I did that on purpose. I want to start it buried a little bit too deeply, and then when I backfill it, I'm going to slowly pull the tree up so it gets a little bit higher. The end result is I want this graft to be several inches above the ground because I'm going to have to add a compost and mulch layer, and you never want to bury the graft of your tree. You always want it to be sticking up a few inches. And as I said, it is spaced exactly on that 8-foot mark. Always make sure that you measure so you get the exact spacing that you want on your trees. When planting your bare root trees, always make sure that the roots are draped down with gravity. Now it's very easy on this tree because the root system isn't huge, but if you had a larger bare root system, you'd really want to fluff them up and make sure that they're draped kind of like a prom dress. So I'm going to start backfilling, and I'm going to put a few inches of soil down because I just want to be able to secure the first couple inches of the roots in order to lock it in place. Now most of the roots have been buried, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to apply just about a handful of this 356 vegetable and tomato organic granulated fertilizer. This will take months to break down. So right now the tree is not active, so using a lot of soluble fertilizers would be just a total waste. because the tree is neither established or actively growing, so it's not going to do anything at this point. I only want to apply the slow release granulated types because it will take months to break down, and as the tree establishes it, it will slowly trickle feed it. Just make sure you use a slow release organic type of fertilizer, something around a 555 or 444. Don't think about it too hard other than that. I'm also going to give it a handful of this bone meal, which is a great source of phosphorus and calcium, which is wonderful for root development. So I just want to dust the roots very lightly with that. Now that the fertilizer has been applied, I'm going to backfill it with a little bit more soil. And please be aware, this is just 100% native soil. It is nothing extra. There's no other additives in this. I want this tree to fully acclimate to the native soil type. I don't want to put some other funny kind of soil in there that it'll get used to when it's really young, and then it won't want to grow into the native soil. Now that the roots have been buried, I want to slowly start to pick up the tree and lift the roots up just a little bit, because I need to get that root stock up just a little bit higher. And I actually want some of the little tiny angel hair type of roots here. I want them to be very close to the surface because I'm going to put down a compost and mulch layer here, and I want those little surface roots to run freely along the surface. So for that reason, I always try to plant my fruit trees just a little bit high. I like them being a little bit elevated for that reason. So now the fruit tree is basically exactly where I want it to be, and I'm going to fully backfill the hole. Now the tree is exactly where I want it to be. The rootstock is at exactly the elevation that I want. Now you just need to give it a 360-degree walk around and make sure that the tree is straight. This tree has ever so slightly a lean to it, but that's because it's grafted and it shoots off at an angle. You actually want to make sure that the rootstock is perfectly straight and upright, which it is. Any bend in the scion wood can just be fixed by staking. Just put a perfectly perpendicular stake into the ground and then tie the tree to it once it establishes, and that will be just fine to correct any bend in the tree itself. So this looks pretty much perfect. Now I'm going to take my foot and I'm going to lightly press the soil down around the tree, making very sure not to damage any surface roots, and I want to lock that tree in place. Now I'm not going to put my full body weight on immediately right up against the tree, but I will around the edges of the hole that I dug. And when you do this, it's very important to make sure that you don't kind of cock the tree off to the side. You want to make sure it maintains its straightness. So do another walk around after you tamp it down and make sure that everything is exactly the way you want it to be. And the last two things I'm going to do is I'm going to place a layer of compost down using this simple bag of cow manure compost, and then I'm going to put a natural hardwood bark mulch on top of that. And it's very important to do that because having a compost layer and a mulch layer will not only add tremendous amounts of organic matter to the soil that will feed the tree all season long, but it will also provide insulation for the roots, both from the cold in the winter and the heat of the sun in the summer, more even moisture during the hot days of the summer. And overall, that layer of organic matter, because it's so light and loamy, the tree will send surface roots through that and it will help it establish more quickly. So we're going to spread the cow manure compost all around the tree, being very careful not to place it up against the graft or up against the trunk of the tree. We don't want to create a mulch volcano, as they say. We want to keep the trunk free of the compost and mulch while providing plenty of organic matter in a clean circle around the tree. And now we are going to very lightly water it in with a few gallons of water. We're going to pour it in the little ring that we made around the tree. And that is how you plant a bare root fruit tree in ground. Now I'm going to show you how to do the same thing with the smaller rootstocks in containers. And right here we have our bare root American persimmon trees. They're starting to wake up. I actually have a little bit of new fresh roots coming out of here, so they need to be up potted as soon as possible. I'm going to use, this is nothing more than HP Pro Mix right out of the compressed cube with 4 handfuls of some cow manure compost in there just to fortify it with a little bit of nutrients. So you want to make sure that you use some type of container that is large enough for the size of the bare root tree. And right now this container right here is the perfect size for this one. So that is the one I'm going to use for this bare root tree. This bare root tree has a more advanced root system. So I'm actually going to have to lightly clip some of the roots off. And this is something that we can do because it is dormant right now, and now because I clipped the roots off, it will fit in that container much better. And it is so incredibly easy to do this. All we're going to do is we're going to keep the rootstock in there all the way with the roots draped down. And we are going to start backfilling this the whole time, trying to keep it centered. And then you can just tap it around like that in order to make sure all the roots are fluffing correctly inside the container. And yes, I could use a larger container than this, but the reason why I need to keep it in the smaller container is if this is a successful grafting experiment, I may want to mail it to somebody. So I need this to be small enough that it can stay in the mail. If you are going to keep it for yourself, by all means use a container about twice the size of this. And just like my Asian pear tree, I want to tap it and kind of lift it up at the same time so I can make sure that the base of this tree is not pressing on the bottom. And then I'm going to just cover up those surface roots with a little bit of additional potting mix. And that's all there is to it. Now we're going to do the same thing to the second tree. And now that they're up potted, I simply need to water them in to help them establish. Although I have to correct myself, I kept saying that these are American persimmons rootstocks. I did order American persimmon rootstocks, but these aren't it. I got them from somebody else. These are Province quince rootstocks that I'll be using to attempt to graft loquat to. So my mistake, but still same rules apply. These are dormant bare root rootstocks. So regardless, this method will work no matter what the bare root rootstock is. And that right there is how you can plant bare root fruit trees both in ground and in containers. Now I know there was a lot of information in this video, so if you have any questions, please ask them in the comments below and I will try to answer them as best as possible. If you found this video helpful, please make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell so you're notified when we upload more videos like these. If you're curious about any of the products that I use in my garden, they are all linked down in the video description in my Amazon storefront. And while you're there, also check out my spread shop for custom merch if you want to support the channel. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see all of you again on the next video. A certain stinky boy is getting a bath. He looks so excited. Look how happy he is to be getting all nice and wet. Gonna get that dirty fur all nice and clean. Soaping him up. Are you enjoying your bath, Dale? Are you enjoying your bath? He looks so happy to be in there. I'm sure he's going to be so sad when it's over. Oh, gotta make sure you keep that stinky dog nice and fresh and clean.